Hey guys, thanks for tuning in to another video on ForgottenWeapons.com. I'm Ian McCollum, and I'm here today at the Croatian Police Museum outside of Zagreb, Croatia, taking a look at some of the particularly cool and rare firearms that they have in their collection. And today we have a Zostava M51. This is a prototype development from Yugoslavia. Zastava is in Serbia. Serbia was part of Yugoslavia during the 1950s. And the Yugoslav People's Army had adopted the M49 submachine gun, which is essentially sort of a hybrid between the Beretta 38 and the Soviet Papasha 41. I actually have a video on the Yugoslav M49/57, which is the same gun, just with a little bit of an upgrade to the rear end cap. And the Yugoslav Army liked that, but they wanted something more compact. They were thinking about the MP40, which they were well familiar with, and wanted something along those lines. The M49 had a fixed full-length wood stock and a long receiver. And so Zastava put together a development program for the M51. We have a collapsing stock, we have a shorter barrel, and a shorter receiver. Let's take a closer look at it. So what we have here may look like it has elements of the Papasha 41 because, well, it basically does. This fire control group is all taken from the M49, which is in turn largely taken from the Papasha. So this is the fire selector lever, single shot and full auto, and then the crossbolt lever here from the M49 is the safety. So one side is safe, the other is fire. Now the M49 had a wood stock with sort of a traditional straight wrist, semi-pistol grip sort of thing. For this, because they put on a collapsing stock, they gave it a proper pistol grip. The stock itself closes by pushing this button there, which allows us to lift the stock up just slightly. So that's the locked position, and that is the unlocked position. Once it's there, the whole stock just slides in, and it slides completely flush with the grip. But I need to have this off so that I can, or have it out, so I can disassemble it for you. Before we do that real quick, we are unfortunately missing the charging handle for this gun, so that's not in there. The barrel is very similar to what would eventually be adopted with the M56. We have a hooded front sight out here, smooth barrel, no need for a barrel shroud on it, just a swivel for a sling. You can see from the front of the receiver that this is very much inspired by the Papasha 41, as is the magazine well. The magazines are, in fact, Russian Papasha magazines. So the gun is chambered for 7.62 Tokarev. This obviously is a short one, probably 15 rounds. But all the standard magazines will fit. Disassembly is a simple matter of pushing this in, rotating it to unlock. There you can see the two locking tabs there that lock into these slots in the receiver. And then we can pull out the whole bolt assembly. So this really is sort of a hybrid between the Beretta 38 and the Papasha. Front end here is pretty reminiscent of the Papasha, but it has a self-contained recoil spring like the early Beretta 38s. And that's about it for the mechanics. So this fires from an open bolt. This one has been unfortunately deactivated by having the firing pin ground down. But otherwise, that's what they had there. If we take a look at the markings here, we have a Yugoslavian crest and then the M51 designation right there. And then this particular example was gifted to a prominent Croatian politician. It's dated here in 1951 and marked Red Zostava, which is interesting. Under the communist government, the official name of the Zastava arms factory at first was in fact Red Zostava. The only other marking on it is a serial number 7 up here on the front of the receiver. I don't see any numbers on the other parts. This is, like I said, this is part of a developmental program. Never went into actual production. The last thing I want to point out here is this stock is actually remarkably short, like uncomfortably short length of pull. And I suspect the reason for that is they had a fixed length of the receiver that they were working with, and there is only that much space for the stock struts. And so they made the stock as long as they could, but that's pretty much all the space that they have. And so it is what it is, kind of along the lines of the VZ61 Scorpions out of Czechoslovakia. So certainly is a nice compact gun, would be convenient in closed spaces like armored vehicles or perhaps for paratroops, but probably not that comfortable of a gun to shoot. Between the short length of pull and the relatively short receiver in 7.62 Tokarev, when this bolt starts going back, it's definitely going to slam into the back end of the receiver tube, and it's probably going to be a pretty jumpy gun to actually shoot. Ultimately, the M51 was not adopted. We don't know how many of these were made. It was not very many. This was essentially a prototype experimental program only. The Yugoslav army would end up adopting the YUGO M56, which had some elements of MP40 to it, did have an underfolding stock and was a more compact gun, but internally was rather different from this. So the M51 here is extremely poorly documented. There are very few of these guns surviving, and it's very cool to be able to take a look at this one up close at the Croatian Police Museum. So a big thanks to them for the opportunity to film it. If you find yourself in Zagreb with a few hours to spare, definitely consider dropping by and checking out the museum. There's some really cool stuff like this in here. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching.